Hello, welcome back to Dragon's Blood, the Isteran Chronicles. Unfortunately, we lost all of the video and audio, really, from the game that we played due to the storms that were happening across the Northeast. It was just pretty terrible, so I didn't want to subject you guys to the glitches and the lag and all of that kind of thing. Plus, halfway through, the audio just kicked out, so all you would hear is me anyway. So, I am Mr. Nate, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what happened in this episode so that the next time we post the next one, you won't be behind wondering what happened. So we picked up with our characters in the temple below the library at Nala, and they had just begun an encounter with a large creature known as a temple destroyer. Combat ensued. Most of the session, about half to 3/4 of the session was this combat, this epic combat between the characters and this temple destroyer. The temple destroyer just flailing about with no purpose seemingly other than to just kill everybody there. It seemed to have one prime directive of just simply killing anyone inside this temple space. And through, of course, a few actions, Dane the monk threw some oil onto the temple destroyer, which was made out of all of this gnarled and twisted together wood. It seemed to have been crafted magically from some ancient source. And he throws this oil on it and coats it in oil. And then Tarask, our archer, he wraps an arrow with some cloth and lights it on fire, and then shoots the creature with the flaming arrow, which in turn sets it ablaze. And this was quite effective as it dealt continuous damage over the rounds. And in fact, I had it increase in damage as the rounds continued, as the fire grew bigger and bigger. Korak, our orc gladiator turned Knight of the White Flame, did his usual hacking quite effectively at one of its legs, and he almost tore off one of its legs. This thing was quite gigantic, maybe 20 to 30 feet tall. And so, however, Ishtar, when his turn came around, he attempted to play a song to affect it with some sleep magic and some fatigue. And what he noticed when he did that was that the creature actually absorbed the magic, and it healed itself from that song. And so any attempts at using magic on it, Dane further, he lit up his fist and attempted to strike it with a magical punch, and it indeed healed it again. And so they figured out, okay, we can't use magic on this thing. So again, they lit it up on fire, and they just hacked away at it. All the meanwhile, the temple is rumbling, rocks are falling, and again, it was a pretty epic encounter, and I'm sad that we don't get the audio from it. But eventually, our heroes succeed in felling this great temple destroyer. Now, this isn't without some major damage to Tarask. The creature had thrown a large piece of pillar at Tarask and struck him with it, and Tarask was hurting very badly. Ishtar and Dane also hurting quite badly. Korak at about half health. And, of course, he's the most resilient out of the four of them. And he still managed to get pummeled a couple of times. He dodged out of a lot of good big punches, but he did get damaged some. So the creature goes down in a heap of flame, filling the room with smoke. It's a quite large room. They discover they're in this big temple with these large, very large pillars. A few of them toppled. And the remaining people, that was a moment there too. The temple guard, or the temple destroyer rather, picked up a large piece of pillar and threw it at the group of people trying to get out. Now, they couldn't get out because there was a large, tree trunk sized pieces that are wrapping together to close off the exit to keep the people in here, so that this temple destroyer could methodically go around and kill everyone without them escaping. And so the temple destroyer picks up a large piece of pillar and throws it at these group of people that are banging at the exit trying to get out, and it just absolutely devastates them. They stood no chance. And it turns out that our crew managed to save about 7 of them. And yes, and so after this encounter, the wooden door that had formed goes away. It retracts back into the earth, and the remaining people are able to get up out of the stairs and back to safety. Now, our group continued to explore the temple despite their injured condition, and they went up and to the right, where they found a large room that seems to be a type of sanctuary. In the sanctuary, they found a boatload of skeletons, ancient skeleton remains. Whatever clothes they had on are long gone, and there seems to be no objects of any real value. And now this sanctuary is long and skinny, and at the end of it is a very large altar, which has a big crack right down the middle of it, which could be due to the large amount of stones that had fallen down in on this entire room. It's almost hard to get around because there's just so much rubble from the destroyed cave wall, and they surmised that this was probably the doing of this temple destroyer that came in and killed all of these people and wrecked the entire temple. So nothing really of value in that room other than to discover that there were just mounds and mounds of skeletons. They left that room and then went down another pathway where at first it seemed to end in another pile of rubble. They were unable to pass. However, our monk Dane has sense magic, and he could sense that there was some type of magic going on here. So upon a closer inspection, this rubble was indeed an illusion, a very good illusion too. But they did get past the illusion and through a door behind there, where they found the head priest's personal quarters. And in here, they found the remains, the skeleton of the long-dead priest. They found a note that he left behind, basically saying that he refuses to go out and let this temple destroyer kill him. He will honor his faith in the red dragon. So they discovered that this is a red dragon temple. He'll honor his faith to the red dragon by dying with a heart of defiance and choosing to starve to death here than to give his enemies the pleasure of death by their hands. And the letter goes on to describe how Lord Files is the leader of these terrible people that are going against the faith and going against the temples, and they're sending these temple destroyers out all across the world. And so our players discover that there are many more of these temple destroyers beneath the earth, possibly still alive, all across Isteran. Put there by people who were going about destroying all of the temples back in ancient times. And they also discovered that Lord Files is indeed an ancient being. He's an ancient person who seems to have stayed alive this entire time. And the letter goes on to describe how this priest thinks the Lord Files is able to stay alive this long, and he thinks that Lord Files stays alive this long by injecting himself with dragon's blood. He harvests blood from all manner of creatures across Isteran, and then he must use some type of practice to extract the pure dragon's blood, just tiny particles of dragon's blood, and then condense them down into drops, which he can then inject into himself and prolong his life and give himself power. Among that note and some other things, they found a nice pen, but they did find a couple of items that were of interest. One of them being a wand of fire creation. It's going to allow them to create fire objects. That'll be interesting to see how they use that. And there was another item that's escaping me at the moment. I can't remember exactly what it was. They have a book. The wand a ring that gives soak. It gives 20 soak to fire. So basically, it's an immunity to fire ring. 20 damage is quite a lot. So, yes, they found a few magical items, some explanations as to what's going on, and that was where we left off. A very key moment happened at the end, though, where Tarask, he had seemed to be okay after this encounter with the Temple Destroyer, but near the end of it, as they are going through kind of ransacking this guy's room, they discover that Tarask has fainted, and he is passed out. He's still alive, he's still breathing, but for some reason, he got lightheaded, and he just passed out. And then we shifted over to Tarask, where his consciousness is transported from his body once again up into this plane, and instead of a little girl talking to him, as has been the case before, this time it's the voice of a full-grown woman. And she says, "Welcome to my hell." And that was where we ended the session. So we'll pick up next time right where we left off there. I hope this was enjoyable to listen to. I'm sorry that it had to be this way, but unfortunately, I just wasn't going to subject people to 2 hours of glitchy sound and so on and so forth. It was a great, enjoyable session. It just it was too messed up to post. So I look forward to the next session where Tarask meets who it is he speaks with. We've already had this session. I'm going to be putting it up hopefully in the near future. Thanks again. Bye.